This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. On our website, you can search for individual treasure stories by region, or buy our original magazines themselves. To pay us a visit, please click on the link in the description. Enjoy. For nearly 150 years, a small island in the Arkansas River, near the Colorado-Kansas border, has been said to conceal $24,000 in Mexican silver. There's no evidence it has been touched since the autumn of 1828, when 24 desperate men hid it there to save their lives. Another cache of silver worth $26,000, abandoned even earlier, may still lie hidden somewhere along the Cimarron River in western Oklahoma or southern Kansas. The story begins in 1821 in Franklin, Missouri, a town no longer on maps, but whose successor, New Franklin, occupies the same general area. At the time, Franklin was the westernmost settlement along the Missouri River. That summer, William Becknell, a resident with a taste for adventure, placed an advertisement in the Missouri Intelligencer, seeking men to join him on a westward expedition to trade horses and mules. Becknell planned to profit from the thriving stolen livestock trade. Native Americans would steal horses and mules from Mexican settlers and sell them to traders like Becknell in exchange for colorful cloth, whiskey, and trinkets. The enterprise was lucrative as mules were in high demand in Missouri. By September 1st, Becknell had recruited enough men, and the group set out, leading pack horses laden with trade goods. They traveled across Kansas to the Big Bend of the Arkansas River. However, Becknell had miscalculated. By the time they reached La Junta, Colorado, the trading season had ended, and the Native Americans had no livestock to sell. Determined not to return empty-handed, Becknell led his group southward over Raton Pass to the Canadian River's headwaters, near present-day Maxwell, New Mexico. Their luck changed unexpectedly. Shortly after setting up camp, they spotted a detachment of Mexican soldiers approaching. Fearing arrest and imprisonment in a Mexican jail, they were surprised when the soldiers greeted them warmly. The captain explained in broken English that Mexico had recently gained independence from Spain and welcomed American traders. He urged them to continue to Santa Fe, where their goods would fetch a good price. Following the captain's advice, Becknell's party reached Santa Fe on November 16, 1821. To their amazement, their trade goods, originally intended for Native Americans, were in high demand among the people of Santa Fe. The group sold everything at a handsome profit, receiving payment in Mexican silver dollars. Most of the men opted to stay in Santa Fe for the winter, enjoying their newfound wealth and the company of local women. Becknell and one companion, McLaughlin, were exceptions. Immune to the city's charms, they loaded their saddlebags with silver dollars and hurried back toward Missouri before the winter snows could block their path. They arrived in Franklin on January 29, 1822. Their profits were extraordinary. For example, Becknell's sister, Fanny Marshall, had invested $60 in the expedition. Her share of the returns amounted to $900, a fortune for the time. News of Becknell's success spread like wildfire across the frontier. By spring, eager men from all over were clamoring to join his next expedition. On May 22, 1822, Becknell set out again, this time with 20 men. Unlike the previous journey, this one included wagons to transport goods, marking the first attempt to take wagons along the Santa Fe Trail. The caravan followed Becknell's previous route through central Kansas, reaching the Big Bend of the Arkansas River, before continuing southwest to a point about 5 miles west of present-day Dodge City. Here, Becknell faced a critical decision. He realized that crossing Raton Pass with wagons would be treacherous and time-consuming. Seeking a shortcut, he opted to chart a new path through the untracked wilderness, an ambitious gamble that would forever shape the history of the Santa Fe Trail. At an average pace of 10 to 15 miles per day for wagons, Becknell realized that taking a shorter route could cut the journey by 2 weeks. Striking south, he may have known that the Cimarron River loops northward within 50 miles of the Arkansas River. Picking up the Cimarron, the traders followed it westward until they reached its headwaters in eastern New Mexico. From there, a 60-mile trek southwest across the desert brought them to the Canadian River, where the trail to Santa Fe became clearly defined. After 870 grueling miles from Franklin, Becknell and his caravan rolled their wagons into Santa Fe. There, Becknell repeated his earlier success on an even grander scale and returned to Franklin using the Cimarron Cutoff, a more direct route, a much wealthier man. His trail became known as the Santa Fe Trail, and in the years that followed, it became a major artery for commerce. Hundreds of tons of merchandise were hauled along the dusty prairies, across rivers, and over mountains to Santa Fe. In return, vast amounts of Mexican silver, hundreds of thousands of dollars, flowed back to American settlements. This growing traffic made local Native American tribes uneasy. As white men increasingly used the trail, clashes between traders and tribes became frequent. Small trading parties stood little chance against attacks, so traders began traveling in large groups of 50 to 100 men for protection. As commerce expanded, it also grew more organized. Caravans often traveled separately on their return trips, as not all traders finished their business in Santa Fe at the same time. In 1828, the first caravan to leave for the U.S. that year departed in August. It was an impressive sight. 60 men driving 1,000 horses and mules, with over a dozen wagons carrying furs and silver. However, the journey quickly became harrowing. The desert heat was oppressive, and water became scarcer than anticipated. The dust, kicked up by 1,000 animals, hung in the still air, choking the traders and limiting visibility to just 100 feet. The caravan trudged on for weeks until reaching what is now the western Oklahoma Panhandle. By then, the water shortage was critical, and the captain sent 2 young men, Daniel Monroe and his friend McNeese, to scout for water. The pair rode ahead through the dusty wasteland, searching for any sign of a creek or pond. Finally, they spotted a sluggish stream near some struggling mesquite trees. Parched and exhausted, they dismounted, drank deeply, and fell asleep in the sparse shade, confident the wagon train would soon catch up. When the caravan arrived an hour later, they found a grim scene. McNeese was dead, and Monroe lay dying. Tracks in the dust told the story. A small band of Native Americans had discovered the sleeping men and shot them with their own guns. The traders faced a dire situation. Their slow-moving train, burdened with horses and wagons, was vulnerable to attack. After hurriedly burying McNeese in a shallow grave, they placed the gravely injured Monroe in a wagon and pushed on toward the Cimarron River. Tension was high as they knew they stood no chance against a large war party. A day or two later, they reached the river, but Monroe had succumbed to his injuries. The caravan stopped briefly to bury him. Just as they finished, 7 Comanche warriors appeared from behind a small rise across the river. The Indians seemed unaware of the deaths of Monroe and McNeese as they approached the group without caution. Frightened and enraged, the traders reacted without hesitation. When the Comanches came within rifle range, the men unleashed a volley of gunfire, killing 6 warriors on the spot. The 7th, riding behind his companions, managed to escape and fled over the hill to warn his tribe of the massacre. Within hours of the massacre, Comanche warriors painted for war and screaming battle cries began streaming into the valley. Though they lacked the numbers for a direct assault, they employed a favorite tactic, riding their ponies around the wagon train, shouting and waving blankets until nearly every mule and horse stampeded into the prairie. With their livestock gone, the wagon train struggled onward. The Comanches, satisfied for the moment with their stolen animals, eventually retreated, but not without thoughts of revenge. 2 weeks later, a second group of traders left Santa Fe. This smaller caravan, consisting of 25 men driving 5 wagons, carried $50,000 worth of Mexican silver, $10,000 in each wagon. Alongside the silver, the group herded 150 choice Mexican horses and mules. Unbeknownst to them, the Comanches had been tracking their progress, waiting to exact vengeance. The warriors set up an ambush at the site of the earlier conflict. As the wagons descended toward the Cimarron River, the Indians launched their attack. Shrieking warriors burst from their hiding places, and the traders fought desperately, knowing their lives were on the line. Despite their courage, the caravan's captain was killed and scalped. The remaining men managed to break free, retreating behind their circled wagons to hold off further assaults. The Comanches pulled back to reassess. True to their expertise in guerrilla warfare, they avoided direct combat with the well-armed traders. Instead, they shadowed the group, harassing them during the day while staying out of gunshot range. At night, they crept closer, driving off more horses and mules. This relentless strategy wore the traders down, and by the time they reached the Kansas border, every animal had been stolen. The situation was dire. Barricaded behind their wagons, the traders held off the warriors, but they couldn't access water. With supplies dwindling, survival seemed impossible. As night fell, each man packed $1,000 in silver, along with as much food as he could carry, and abandoned the wagons. In total, they left behind $26,000 in silver, likely hidden by the Comanches, who had little interest in precious metals and may have forgotten its location. The Indians did not pursue the desperate men, assuming they would die of thirst in the desert. The traders, however, pressed north without rest or water for 2 days, eventually staggering to the Arkansas River near present-day Coolidge, Kansas. Dehydrated and exhausted, they realized they could no longer carry the $24,000 in silver they had brought from the wagons. After resting, they buried the loot on Choctaw Island in the Arkansas River, near the Colorado-Kansas border. Refreshed by water and lighter packs, the group set out on foot for Independence, Missouri, nearly 400 miles away. Initially, the weather was mild and game was plentiful. But after passing the Great Bend of the Arkansas River and striking out cross-country, they faced harsher conditions. Water and food became scarce, and the weather turned cold and stormy. The men grew weaker with each passing day. Eventually, starvation set in. The group's food supply ran out, and they were forced to march in the freezing cold without water. As their strength ebbed, they abandoned rifles and other belongings. Only a few of the hardiest men managed to press on, while the rest struggled behind, some collapsing along the way. In desperation, 5 of the strongest men were sent ahead to find help. After traveling as quickly as their weakened bodies allowed, they finally encountered settlers within 15 miles of Independence. A rescue party was quickly organized and retraced the trail, finding starving, exhausted men scattered over a 50-mile stretch. One trader, blinded by hunger, was discovered fending off a pack of wolves with nothing but a stick. Tragically, not all of the original 24 survived the ordeal. There is no evidence that the survivors ever returned to recover the buried silver. The hiding place was off the main trail, and they may have been unable, or unwilling, to retrace their steps. Given the harrowing experience they endured, it's unlikely they were eager to return. As a result, $24,000 in silver may still lie hidden on Choctaw Island, waiting for a treasure hunter to uncover it. Likewise, the $26,000 left near the Cimarron River remains another tantalizing mystery lost to time. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.